Good morning and welcome to the part 5 of Modernizing .NET Applications. My name is Jan Eilman and I'm presenting today with Sean Devlin. Sean, good morning.
Good morning, Jan. It's early for you.
Quick test, Sean. Is my screen visible?
It is.
Excellent. Well, then we can get started. All right, well, these webinar series are short and to the point. We've done 4 parts so far. The recordings are available on our website. So if you navigate from our homepage to the .NET page, which is in the main menu at the top, you will find the 4 recordings of the webinars that are ready for you to view. Today we're running part 5 and next week we're moving into part 6. If you have any questions during this webinar, feel free to ask them or send us an email. Our email addresses will be displayed at the end of this presentation. We have quite a lot of content to cover today, so let's get started. We used to build software from an engineering perspective. The user interfaces often reflected the underlying architecture. For example, in an ERP, everything tended to be a master detail relation and thus a master detail screen entry. And it used to be that users were responsible for the integrity of the system, and this is changing. Now we are starting to put the user first and making the systems responsible for how efficient the user is in the software application.
Yeah, it used to also be that a company's brand was associated with their controlled message. So they created the kind of message that they want people to perceive. So now we're seeing that more and more a company's brand is identified with the cumulative experience that their customers have, including every interaction that they have. So UX is a lot about branding as well, and companies that do this well can really control their experiences to proactively affect how their brand is perceived.
And UX doesn't mean that you have to start from the ground up. You know, very often it is quite easy to do this on existing systems and existing technology. And one of my favorite examples is the Apple Store. If you go to the Apple Store and you buy something, there is still a very complex ERP system in the background. If rumors are correct, then it is running Oracle ERP in the background, which is famous for how user-unfriendly it is. And Apple simply put a very user-friendly mobile app that scans the product, swipes your credit card and takes your signature, and really thought about putting the user first, and in this case not only the user of the Apple Store but also the consumer in the Apple Store.
Yeah, we're seeing that this change in inversion in the UX paradigm is driving disruption. So it's not just users exerting pressure on software providers to provide better software, but even that a change in UX thinking can create disruptions in even new business categories. And I think a nice example of that is Google Inbox. So everybody hates email. It's a necessary business and even personal function. And we dread the responsibility that the email system imposes on us. So we're responsible as users of email for sorting and categorizing and prioritizing and timing our responses to the glut of this, the sheer number of interactions. It is putting us on computer terms, and that's not what humans excel at. And I think a good example of this is how Google has sort of inverted the paradigm of email, taking the user-first approach, and it sort of almost parses and reads and predicts what the users need from their email rather than making the user responsible for managing the email. So doing things like organizing emails to provide you information and notification about trips that you're taking. So it'll put all your hotel, flight, rental car information into bundles, allowing you to snooze emails like you would an alarm clock. So I don't have to respond to that today. Maybe I'll respond to it tomorrow, and then it comes back up again tomorrow. So that sort of interaction that it creates makes the user more efficient in the requirement that they have to use email in the modern world, and takes away a lot of the responsibility that we used to have. So I think that's good in the personal and also the business space. But maybe a better example for you know, the same disruption occurring in the enterprise space is, and it's occurring more slowly, is what can happen with a full ERP system. Is it possible that you could do the same inversion with an enterprise system? And we are seeing at Servoy, we work with a lot of software vendors who sell ERP applications, and we're seeing that the ISVs can take advantage of this paradigm change and make the user first. So this is a screenshot of a customer whose motto is ERP that doesn't suck. Their words, not mine. And they've taken the responsibility of getting data in and out of a system and understanding, as Jan said, master detail and how data relates together from a system point of view. They're taking that responsibility away from the user and moving it to the background and putting at the foreground those sort of salient figures that they need to see and allowing the user to quickly draw conclusions and find what they need. They have a system where they put every build in front of a user, and without any documentation, without any training, if the user cannot fulfill the business function without training and documentation, then they go back to the drawing board and redesign it. So a real user-first approach with ERP.
Yeah, and actually, we started doing this at Servoy as well. And the first time when at Servoy we started observing our users, we were quite shocked. It was way too hard to start using our development tools for a new user. And we realized that we were stuck in inside-out thinking. And inside-out thinking is you think that your users think and work the way that you do, but they don't. So once we started doing that, now we remind ourselves continuously to think outside in with the end user first. And on a regular basis, we invite our users, new users to our platform, to download it and start using it, and we record what they're doing. And by doing that, we can quickly identify problematic areas in getting started with our platform. So it is very important to begin with the user experience. Truly start thinking and working outside in. Train your developers and everybody in the organization to truly engage with your end users in every phase of the software development process.
Yeah, and there's no strict formula for UX involvement. What matters most is that it's not just a one-and-done kind of prescription process. Some people tend to do this UX design at the beginning, but it should be in every phase of the software lifecycle. And it typically involves something like the steps we have up here, a research and analysis phase combined with design and production cycles. And most importantly, that the whole process is iterative, meaning you don't just do it once and go through it. It's, as software is never done, UX involvement in software delivery is never done. But before you even get to those steps, there has to be strategic involvement at the organizational level. Any effort with new software modernization and UX involvement has to be first aligned with organizational goals. You don't do a UX optimization just for its own sake because you want to have better UX. It has to be supported by real business cases. So that's kind of where you start from.
So it begins with the discovery phase. And that means interviewing everybody involved with the software. Not only the end user, obviously the end user as well, but also other stakeholders like the management of a company, what is their goal of the software process? What are you actually automating with your software? Once you understand well how the users think, you can start creating user stories, and again from the user's perspective. So user stories always start with, as a data entry person, and then the process starts, describe how the user will work his way through the system. And from there, an important step as well is user observation. So take a typical end user of your system, preferably if your user base is large enough, not the same one every time, so new users, because otherwise they get used to the interview process, and it is really good to have fresh users in this process. And this process is as straightforward as it sounds. It's not very difficult. Just grab a notebook, turn on a screen recorder, if necessary a sound recorder, and ask an end user to perform a task. And if possible, ask the end user to think out loud while he's doing this. This often brings some interesting insights as well on how they're using the software. This will help you to discover patterns that are not working well in your software, that are too complex, that need to be adjusted or can be optimized. A very efficient way of getting your software very user-centric.
Yeah, and the results of all of this research have to be compiled and analyzed to really produce an understanding of what the user's needs are. And so this analysis phase can include analysis of what competition is doing, analysis of your legacy system. So at Servoy, we often work with outside UX consultants that we bring in to help our customers, and they'll sometimes walk through, as sort of the quickest way is to walk through a legacy system if there's one to be modernized, and do an analysis on the usability of the current system. But if you can and have access to end users, as Jan said, that will produce the most results. And so the analysis of these user interviews are what they call in the UX world profile or persona creations, where you may talk to several users or even a broad survey, and the results are that you compile that into sort of a fictitious persona, like Bob in accounting or something, and you go through and detail out what their business function are, what goals they're trying to achieve in a given day, etc. So once you've completed research, then you really get down to designing the user experience, and this is quite a bit different activity. And again, there's no rote prescription, but it often includes designing wireframes about how the UI will look. But UX is not just about UI; it's about a lot of other things. So how information is sort of organized and presented to the end user. Really diagramming how users move throughout the application. So user flows or activity diagrams are kind of a deliverable from the design phase. To give you an example, you might have a user story like, I want to add a contact to the system. And when it stands alone by itself, it could be sound very simple, but it matters a lot how the user is getting into that user story and what they're going to do next. So you really need to understand what the user is doing when they start a flow. Maybe they want to add a contact with minimal information and then move on, or maybe they're adding a contact and then they're attaching a bunch of documents and putting in some detailed notes. So you really need to understand what they're going to do next. Maybe they'll add 5 in a row very quickly. It matters what the context is. Another deliverable might be a style guide, maybe in the form of CSS style sheets, or maybe a guide for developers and designers to follow that outlines sort of some guidelines about the way an application will be presented, the way it'll look.
So an important step in this are wireframes. And the easiest way to think about a wireframe is in terms of building a house. Before you apply all the paint and furnishings, the architect needs to draw the floor plan. He needs to make sure that spaces in the house function well and that they are where the occupants would expect them. It's not good having a kitchen in the master bedroom or a light switch behind the toilet. And the wireframes are the floor plan of your application, creating a vessel from which the design and the content can flow into. So wireframes can go from low fidelity with just pencil lines to high fidelity, which is a fully annotated diagram and everything that comes in between. And they're useful for a number of reasons. First of all, it gives visual designers a basis to begin creating the actual screens. It can be used as a reference point for functional specifications. It can help you to communicate the functionality that you're going to build with the stakeholders without muddying the waters with visual design elements or branding. It allows you to explore ideas without the difficulty of change inherent if you're using Photoshop, for example, Photoshop mockups. And you can use it as a basis to prototype and to start user testing ideas early on. So if you're looking at the steps of getting from design into production, then it's important to do this in phases. So you start small, you don't do major launches, but you do small launches and you iterate often. So you try to launch as often as possible. You use focus groups to get your feedback from customer advisory committees that help you in improving. And once that is all up and running, you start moving to a wider audience.
Yeah, and just to say it once more, it's important that each of these steps in the process is something that happens over and over and over again as you continue to evolve software. Software is never done, and UX involvement is therefore never done. It pervades every step of the process. So, this sort of details out how the UX process works, but I don't think yet we've illustrated, really how do you get down into the details and get it done. So you might be wondering what sort of expertise and tools would you need. I think first and foremost, it's important to have a person with expertise in user experience design there to help you. This could be an employee that receives training or an outside consultant. But I think a common myth about UX is that it's just plain common sense and everyone can do it. And I think that can hurt organizations because there is a real craft to user experience design, and if you can have an expert involved, it can really provide value. And what a UX consultant can really do is provide expert reviews of maybe existing systems, and that they can culminate that in a report of all of the usability flaws in a current system, provided with additionally with engaging with end users to produce these personas and profiles and really a detailed understanding about your user. And another myth that I hear is that, well, we understand our users. We've been working in this space for 20 years or something. And I think that gets confused with we understand the business functional requirements. We know what a system needs to do. But if you really sit and observe a user, as Jan said, sometimes it can be shocking. And this is what a UX expert can do. And often, if they are an outside consultant, they bring that fresh perspective because everyone gets entrenched in their own thinking. Even your end users get entrenched if they've been using a legacy system for a long time to what alternatives there might be. So it really helps to have that outside perspective.
So the next step then is getting your design tools, and there are quite a few tools out there that make it easy for you to create wireframes, or you can just use a pen and paper. So this depends on your preference. Increasingly there are great software packages out there that can help you to create wireframes. Some are even responsive so that you can reuse the wireframes for both mobile and desktop. And that help you to create mock-ups of your application. And then the next step is your graphic design and icon sets. And this used to be very limited back in the Windows days. There were only maybe 5 to 10 companies that would provide you with graphic design and icon sets. Nowadays, in the HTML5 era and in the era in which you can use HTML5 tools and technology, there are literally thousands of designs and icon sets out there. So very often you'll find that you don't have to create your own from scratch, which is going to be more expensive, but you can select existing icon sets and graphic designs out there. So typically the pattern we see is that small and medium-sized ISVs, software companies, will select existing icon sets that you can purchase for some as cheap as $5 or $6, for example, Twitter Bootstrap layouts. And larger ISVs will hire a design company to create a very custom look and feel icon set, and both are perfectly possible. And from there you create a style guide that you give to your designers and developers so that everybody implements the same design and look and feel in your application. The next phase, which is the actual software development, it is critical to select tools that allow you to do this quickly. So get a rapid application development environment that gives you modern UI capabilities, that allows you to do continuous delivery. That means that every time a developer commits a piece of code, your application gets entirely built and tested in an automated way and allows you to take it to your acceptance environment from there.
Yeah, and I think finally it's worth mentioning that another tool that you can bring to this picture is some analytics tools. Very often when we work with ISVs who are trying to modernize a legacy system, we find that they really have no idea, no insight into how their system is used. They don't have any analytics to measure which features are used the most, and therefore they don't even know which features are the most valuable. Modernization effort often involves trying to determine a minimum viable product, what features are most valuable, what features can you leave out in a first version, and this can be kind of a stressful decision. If it was informed by some results from analytics, then it would be made a lot easier. So one question, if you're doing a modernization, is how much do you want to know about your next generation system? And fortunately, now it's very easy to incorporate analytics into new systems. At Servoy, we provide a Google Analytics integration for some of our customers. They just plug that in, and then they're able to track and understand lots of things about a user, how they move through a system, which features get used the most, but even some more broad conclusions like at what times of the day are users most busy, or from which geographies do users come in from, which devices, etc. So it really can provide a robust understanding, and it's something that you can sort of tack on to a modernization effort.
All right, and we're exactly at the 25 minutes that we promised to do this in. So if you have any questions, then feel free to contact us by email or phone. And I think there is one big conclusion of today's session, which is begin with the most important, which is user experience. We've gone through all the steps and tools that you can use for that. Don't forget, begin with the user experience, and that will allow you to deliver great applications to your end users. Thanks very much for attending. This recording will be available within a few days on our website as well if you'd like to review it again. Thank you.